Michelangelo Merisi, known as Caravaggio, was a very famous painter in his time, but after his death, he was forgotten for centuries. Only in the 20th century did critics rediscover him and realize that he is an extraordinary artist and that modern painting begins with him. Unfortunately, Caravaggio also corresponds to a stereotype that is typical of our mentality today, which did not exist at all in his time, that of the cursed artist. On the surface, Caravaggio fits this description perfectly. He was violent, he was a drinker, and he was continuously involved in brawls, beatings, and stabbings, ending up in jail more than once. At a certain point, he loses control and kills a man, and is forced to flee from Rome, and is sentenced to exile by the papal state. The first thing to say is that in his time, between the 1500s and 1600s, being involved in brawls, perhaps killing someone, and being condemned to exile was a very common occurrence. They were not people like us. They were people who walked around armed and had an almost hysterical sense of honor. And indeed, the more you were a person of importance in society, the more likely it was that you might end up killing someone and being condemned to exile if justice decided to intervene. Justice would occasionally intervene. Being sentenced to exile essentially meant you should stay away for a while, wait for the waters to calm, and in the meantime, if you have some protection, you could start scheming to obtain forgiveness. Which is precisely what Caravaggio does. Caravaggio leaves Rome, and for a long time is hosted by the Colonna princes in their castles just outside Rome. He then decides to move to Naples for work, and in Naples he is hosted by great princely houses, the Carafa and the Colonna, who commission paintings from him and pay him very well, showering him with gold. In short, at that time, the great families and their protégés laughed at justice. This is something that we cannot accept today. And so in the documentary, they insist on telling us that Caravaggio is a condemned man, that in the last years of his life, he is a fugitive, hunted, terrified at the thought of being captured, with a bounty on his head. This then comes from having seen too many Western films. The bounty absolutely did not exist, and in the same way, it is difficult to explain why he behaved like that. It doesn't sit well that at the time everyone more or less behaved this way. And so the theory of lead poisoning arises.